Hey, Busy Fit fam, this is Stephen Anderson and I'm your Busy Fit coach. Welcome to week 14, day 3 of your Busy Fit Healthy Habits coaching, and I am so glad that you're here. Now, today is day 1 of the reintroduction, so we are going to cover the very first category of foods that you're going to be reintroducing and give you some sample ideas of how that can happen for you. Now, the second thing is that we need to make sure that we go ahead and dive in and continue looking at the things that you should be looking at when it comes to your reintroduction. Now, today we're starting out with cravings, because if you're finding that when you reintroduce a certain food that it really brings back that sugar demon, that you really start craving sugar and carbs, that you start eating foods just because they're right there in front of you, then that's a sign that that food may have a little bit of a trigger for you when it comes to triggering your cravings, and that's something you want to be on the lookout for. Now, the next thing that we'll talk about when it comes to the reintroduction is your mood. How has your mood been affected when you reintroduce a certain food? So are you finding yourself more cranky, more anxious, maybe depressed? Those are things that you can look at, seeing if you're not in a good place. That's really the overall rule. If you feel like you're just not in a good place when it comes to interacting with other people, then that food, when you introduced it, may actually be affecting your mood. Now, the last thing that we'll look at is behaviors. Now, this one is kind of closely related to moods, because sometimes when you don't feel well or you're angry or depressed, then those things can cause you to have behaviors where you're just snappy with other people, or where you feel like people are really irking your nerves very easily. These are things that can all be tied into your nutrition. A lot of times we don't think about that, but when you're reintroducing those foods, if it doesn't help you stay in a happy place, then you want to start looking at that as a cause relation. Maybe those things are related, but these are the things that you should be looking at when it comes to evaluating your reintroduction. Now, just as a reminder, when it comes to your reintroduction, we are doing what is known in the Whole30 world as the fast track, which is a 10-day plan, which says on day 1 we're going to reintroduce legumes, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But we're going to reintroduce them, and then for the next 2 days, so for days 2 and 3, you're back on your Whole30 plan, and you're taking an assessment to see how your body feels and what's happening to your body as you are introducing these foods. So let's start with legumes. There's a couple of easy ways you can get it in. One is peanut butter. So you can have peanut butter on an apple, or maybe have peanut butter on some type of vegetable. I don't recommend you necessarily do it in a sandwich format, because that's a lot of carbohydrates and a lot of sugar along with it, and those can be a little bit conflicting. But giving you some peanut butter and maybe some black beans or pinto beans or something else to that effect, having a couple of servings of those throughout the day, that should be enough for you to assess whether legumes have an effect on you or not, and if so, what that effect is. All right, now today we are going to look at also a second way for you to have your reintroduction completed. Now, today's introduction, or beginning of the reintroduction, is going to be a 10-day process. This is actually considered the fast track, where you have 1 day of reintroducing something, and then for the next 2 days you're back on Whole30, so you can feel how your body is responding to whatever you reintroduce. And in this case, we know it's the legumes. Now, there is a slower process, and I will leave a link to that below so that you can check that out if you feel like you want to take it slower. In other words, put more time in between your reintroducing. Remember, if you're not feeling well after introducing something, you feel like the effects are still there 3 days later, then don't start the next ingredient or the next category until you're feeling good that you are back on track, because we don't want to mix up those symptoms. So we want to give you a clear picture of what the food is doing. The other thing is, it's time to get your weight and your measurements and your progress pictures. Remember that this is at the very end, so I will leave videos available below for you to get your progress pictures and for you to be able to be refreshed on how to get your measurements done. And also remember that this is about your health. We do want to take these objective measurements, but it's not just about these objective measurements. How are you feeling? How is your mood? How is your sleep? How are those things that are in your life coming together? That's what's really most important. All right, that's it for today. So remember to persist. That we're persistent till I succeed. I'll never give up. And I'll see you on tomorrow.